Is there anything here that you see as a major stock mover for Apple?
Yes. So I'm of the belief that unfortunately the pandemic is a multi-year event and we'll be working and learning remotely at least part of the year for years to come. So from that vantage point, having a new tablet, so an iPad Pro, 5G, faster speed, Apple's chips, and a new desktop computer with Apple's chips, I think those are stock movers of the announcements today by the company.
Why is a tablet a critical part of the work from home or the work remote environment? I get having a laptop or a desktop in that scenario, but a tablet escapes me a little bit. Explain.
So think of the tablet especially as well suited for the learning remotely. Many schools, I think Apple has an agreement with New York public schools for the sale of tablets in large quantities for students. So think of it as the learning remotely, amazingly well suited for that device, and also well suited for Zoom calls or anything else you may do from a work vantage point as well. You don't always need a desktop or laptop to communicate with your colleagues. The tablet's often more than suitable.
Tim, let me turn to you and get your quick reactions to what Apple has announced today. Specifically, focus on this M1 chip and what it means for speed to the devices, and do we really need more speed?
Yeah, well, it's an expansion of that M1 to more devices. We were expecting it. And the early reaction to those chips in the past few months in the Mac laptops has been really spectacular. People really like it. So it's adding new features to the iPad Pro, which is important because, as we've noted here, last year really went gangbuster for this device. And you got to keep some kind of excitement to keep some of that momentum going into the second half of this fiscal year, which analysts on Wall Street generally kind of agree that there'll probably be a slowdown compared to just like the record, the best year in 6 years that was last year.
You know, I get it. I assume for many people it really does matter what chip their device is running on. I bought a big Mac computer for my home last December. Beautiful. I love it. I couldn't tell you in a million years what chip it's running and whether it's X% faster than the prior generation of chips. Tim?
Yeah, I think you for the regular iPad, I think you're correct about that. The user probably doesn't care, but for the iPad Pro, the high-end version, these are the early adopters. These are the people who don't mind spending more money. They want the latest and the greatest thing, and there will be a lot of excitement that this is going to be in that device this spring.
All right, Steve Kovac, your thoughts?
Yeah. Based on what Tim was saying, too, you got to think about it. The iPad is more like a Mac now than anything else. They literally put the same chips they're using in their Mac computers into the iPad. So if you want a Mac but with a touchscreen, you go iPad. If you want just a regular Mac laptop, that classic form factor, you go with the MacBook or one of those new Mac desktops. And that's really what they're telling us here thematically is the lines of distinction between these kind of products are blurring even more. You can use a mouse with your iPad. You can use that keyboard cover with your iPad that makes it into a sort of MacBook. So that's really interesting that they're saying if you're going to spend $1,000, you want a touchscreen, you go for the iPad Pro. If you don't care about that, you want a more traditional form factor, you go with one of the new Macs.
Tom, I want to turn back to the stock and also to the podcasting announcements they've made. Spotify shares went to session lows after this, but they would seem to be up against some stiff competition. What are the details of the announcement that you think matter for investors, and how important is it for Apple to do well in this business?
Well, okay, so if you think about Apple's story not that long ago, it really was about services and the non-hardware elements of the portfolio that enabled them to have, accretive sales and margins and an accretive multiple. So podcasting has become an important format for advertising, an important way for consumers to engage. So I think Apple's efforts in podcasting advance the effort there, as well as the 4K Apple TV on the video front, as OTT becomes even more important.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.